Okay, today I want to revisit Earth 2 because the little engine that can't just keeps on going. I apologize for the break, by the way, away from making content. I was setting up a basketball hoop in the yard and I got injured. I'm fine now, but it definitely wasn't fun and it stopped me from working for a few days. However, during those past few days, I got to sit here and read up on the goings on across the internet, and I found that one of my past topics had continued to grow and change. That topic is Earth 2, and that growth, those changes, they are absolutely hilarious and worth discussing because the absurdity of this project apparently has no bounds. For those that don't know, Earth 2 is digital real estate. It's a one-to-one scale replica of the existing Earth utilizing a tool called Mapbox technology. That's important, I'll get back to that later on. In order to lay out a functional grid that holds something like 1 trillion or more tiles. That number is changing, by the way, and growing as they launch new territories. These tiles get bought and sold between players on a marketplace after they buy in with real-world cash. That logically creates a question about what this actually is, because right now it simply is not a game. It just isn't, contrary to what many supporters might tell you. It factually is not a game. It's more akin to something like a digital asset or commodity. The marketplace is overrun with people trying to sell their worthless little digital squares for more than they paid, and the functionality of it all is janky at best, broken at worst, and pointless under the best of circumstances, because the entire premise of this project is to create the Oasis from Ready Player One. This team of 20-ish developers is going to create The Matrix. This is a verbatim quote from their homepage, by the way. It's not hyperbole or exaggeration on my part. So, knowing what this whole thing is intended to be, so they say, let's look at what it is, because what it is kind of hilarious. Setting aside previous items about how the developers hired an 18-year-old kid who had flipped assets and scammed people on Steam numerous times in the past, and that 18-year-old kid then got caught in an audio log bragging about how the CEO of the company had set aside something like $4 million to sue all the YouTube critics and ruin their lives, and then the CEO, in his own public speech of sorts, claimed he had no idea what the kid's voice even sounded like despite him being a temporary hire at the company, and that any idea of a lawsuit was completely fabricated. Setting aside stuff like that, even though it's pretty hard to set aside for any claimed professional company, let's get into a more comprehensive, up-to-date overview of the project and where it's at right now. To understand why Earth 2 is like the dunce cap wearing clown in the corner of the classroom of life, we have to look at its various existing systems. Let's start with Jewels. Jewels are a booster, like a mobile game credit booster or something like that, for resources. Eventually, the claim is, you'll be able to build entire buildings and towns and cities, as in Ready Player One, right, the Oasis. And those cities will, of course, require resources to construct and power. The tiles you buy now will produce those resources, the jewels will boost that production, and then you will use it all for the glorious expansion of a new digital planet. There's one little problem though. The only thing they have right now are the jewels, and the jewels are completely useless without the resources, and the resources are completely worthless without the functionality to consume them. So basically they have nothing. So what do? They add the bazaar. The bazaar, an Arabic word for market, is where you buy and sell the jewels that don't do anything with other players. You can buy a little yellow pixel image or sell a little blue pixel image. Yay! None of it does a single thing, except allow for the development team to harvest additional transaction revenue, and one more, slightly less considered, utility function. Jewels are gained randomly from your properties, and the only functionality right now is that you might be able to get some other idiot to buy them from you. In order to do that, though, you have to check for them and then sell them. So effectively, there is a login incentive to keep coming back to this worthless game, which isn't a game, even if you are not planning on spending any more money at all. That has an SEO function. Recurring traffic and interactive traffic especially are incredibly important for the purpose of ranking your website in search engines. So this useless little jewel system is not so useless when you think about it from a marketing perspective. Keep that in mind, the SEO stuff. The picture will solidify fairly quickly. Let's move on to mentars. Mentars are some sort of extraction device that will harness ether from the properties that you buy. That ether then gets converted into essence by the mentar, which is another thing that does nothing. These mentars are much more interesting though, because the way you generate them is by logging in 7 times over 7 days to your property management page or waiting 14 days. This is yet another example of spiking daily traffic, which will have a tangible impact on SEO and help rank the site on Google and other engines. The mentars produce essence, so again, it does nothing, essence does. And if you look at them through the lens of actual gameplay, they are worthless. Worthless right now. However, if you look at them as a marketing tool to inflate website traffic and daily visits, they're pretty fantastic. Now is where it gets absurd, if it wasn't already, because Essence is meant to be used as an acquisition currency for EPLs, which is like a property domain name, kind of. And EPLs will be the infrastructure to use teleporters so that you can, travel from one tile to another tile? It's like making the portals from World of Warcraft, where your player can travel to and from different continents in Azeroth, but there is no World of Warcraft. So why in the absolute fuck would they ever need the portals? They are completely useless right now. Last up is holo buildings, and this one is my favorite. Holo buildings seem like the first rudimentary step towards an actual game. Hallelujah. Where you can make rectangle or polygon-shaped blocks, and those blocks will effectively construct a sort of cityscape. One problem. Holo buildings are almost point for point a copy-paste of existing mechanics offered through Mapbox. The Earth 2 team didn't make this. This is not the building blocks of a functional game. It's the implementation of a very inexpensive purchasable tool from the company that they already use for the entire project. Earth 2 shouldn't really be called Earth 2 in my opinion. It should be called a great display of Mapbox tech that does all the same things the tech already did, only now you get to spend boatloads of cash on it. The whole thing is just a joke. It's like they let a monkey with a crayon into a room with a comprehensive roadmap on the walls, and everything he doodled on gets done first, while the rest just gets ignored. He doodled on the resource boosters, not the resources themselves, and a bunch of other meaningless tertiary systems, and they really are tertiary systems. So now they're making all those worthless systems with none of the functional infrastructure required to actually use anything right now. It's absolutely hilarious. What makes it all even more comedic is that the community at large has begun to praise a series of comments made by Shark Tank mogul Daymond John. This is where the mask will get peeled back a little, because praising these comments is the behavior of an irrational cult. They are so desperate for any shred of possible good news. They think that these comments right here are a good thing.
Those are the only two options.
Those are only two. Real estate.
They're not making more land.
They're not making more land. Well, they are on
That's
Earth
what
2.
everyone loves to do, yeah.
You checked out Earth 2 yet?
No. Where's that?
Well, Earth 2 is so if you guys like, all this crypto stuff, Earth 2 is, I know everybody's going to start looking at Earth 2. You can start buying tiles on Earth 2.
That sounds like a scam.
You got some Earth 2?
So what do you mean?
That's an NFT of a fake Earth?
It's not is it an NFT of Earth? No, it's not an NFT of Earth.
It makes no sense. They're just selling Earth.
But I'm very interested now.
It's like you're buying Google Maps. Like, when you just Google Map and randomly go somewhere,
Yeah.
like you can then buy that.
But listen, if you buy
Yeah.
Beverly Hills,
That was the first one, but more importantly, the second one really hammers it home.
Reddit.
I've never heard of that. Is he on Earth 2 as well?
Is he on Earth?
Earth 2
Oh, I don't know.
is a virtual world. I believe it's called Earth 2.
I don't know. Can you Google that?
I think it's Earth 2.
Great. You're going to make him fucking buy something else today.
You can buy tiles. You can buy tiles of.
Oh.
There you go.
Dude,
So-
you just ruined his night.
Let me reframe this right now with a bit of my own speculation. Daymond John has no idea what Earth 2 actually is. It's not crypto. Yes, it will probably have crypto of some sort and an integration in the future, but that isn't what it is right now. It seems to me that he is either A, slightly embarrassed to even be talking about this, but that's the thing he latched onto as some sort of fringe, look at me, I'm in touch with the interweb trends type of project, or B, he got paid a boatload of cash to bring this up in a certain number of his appearances on podcasts or interviews or whatever. I think it's B personally, purely based on verbiage and tone. However, that's purely speculative, so let's circle back to something that isn't. Dubai. Dubai is obviously a real place in the UAE. The thing about Earth 2 is that the demand seems to hinge purely on landmarks or places of interest. Think cities or popular buildings. The Statue of Liberty, for example, got sold for $36,000 to a couple guys from South Korea. God only knows why. Apparently they made a video saying why, and it was incomprehensible to me. Best thing I can gather, and the reason why they did it, I honestly don't really know why, but it seems like they literally did it because it was expensive. That seems to be the most important reason. Anyways, since the interest revolves around popular locations or locations perceived to be valuable or iconic in the real world, even though I'm pretty sure these tiles are going to be scrubbed and there's going to be nothing on them when they actually release or when the functional game comes out, which, who knows, whatever, that's a whole tangent. That means a location like Dubai, for a multitude of reasons, not just cities, but also natural resources like oil, which don't even exist yet, a location like Dubai creates an immediate land rush of sorts when it gets opened for initial purchases. That means traffic and revenue. This is point for point the monetization of a gullible fan base. You cultivate the diehard supporters, you give them nothing, you string them along, and then you rekindle the FOMO, the urgency, and the exclusivity by opening new locations. The value for the earliest buyers will spike, you get a massive investment windfall as a company, and this is repeatable. It's an event that creates more diehard fans in the process. But let's go even further here. How can we tell that they have doubled down on this type of behavior? Look at their partnerships. Not too long ago, in the relative scheme of things, Earth 2 announced that it would be working with Vicarious PR. Except, Vicarious PR, as much as it brags and gushes about awards and achievements, has basically received no legitimate accolades whatsoever, except for the game Ring of Elysium, which is a game that was spamming the most obnoxious PR letters to pretty much any relevant gaming YouTuber or creator back when it was first coming out. It was a total joke. After that was in 2019 by the way, they have nothing. Funnily enough, I have received, personally, 3 separate emails from Vicarious PR to my own email inbox for 3 different indie games. One is Gordian Quest, which barely maintains a couple hundred players now, but was actually pretty fun, and most importantly, got advertised by a bunch of different PR firms. The others were Fallen Angel and The Amazing American Circus. Fallen Angel never even topped 10 players on Steam. At launch, they had 7 concurrent players. Not 700, not 70, 7 players. And The Amazing American Circus doesn't even return metrics when you click on it with Steam charts, while its beta had, once again, 7 players. Is it like the 7 employees of Vicarious who play these games? Because whatever they got paid was akin to burning the money in a heap. It is a useless company. Furthermore, as per the findings of other YouTubers and creators such as Kira TV, who does an excellent job covering Earth 2 and has been for quite some time, Vicarious PR employees, pretty much all of them, have second jobs. But not just second jobs, much more important jobs at larger, more successful companies when compared to Vicarious PR. I've been emailed by multiple of their staff for games that couldn't even crack 10 players. A partnership with this company could not possibly be a more stupid investment for Earth 2. Now, full transparency, I tuned out for a couple of months, but in that couple of months, the Earth 2 team went full balls-to-the-wall idiocy. Another partnership they announced was with Jumio, which provides identity verification and KYC solutions. KYC, for those that don't know, means know your customer, and there are strict regulations around this for financial companies. My own speculation, Earth 2 knew for a fact that they were on track to run afoul of the regulatory market as they persist in a state of limbo of sorts where game is a wholly inaccurate descriptor of the project. It really is. Instead, they are best classified as a financial institution, dealing in securities, assets, or commodities. And as a result, they are subject to FINRA guidelines and KYC regulations. They install partnerships to protect against money laundering, to try and conform to impending regulatory scrutiny, and to spike their SEO traffic, while still pretending that this will be like The Matrix or Ready Player One, as they produce systems on top of systems that don't even have a foundation. It's like they're building all the pipes up in the air for a house, a toilet system in a 3-story house, but there isn't even a house. Every single system in Earth 2 thus far is a financial extraction tool. They create currencies and items that literally do nothing just so that players will trade them. They partner with absolutely rock-bottom worthless companies who cannot even get a dozen sales for what look like fairly decent indie games. Like, genuinely, I'm racking my brain. How could one possibly think that Vicarious PR is a good partnership? I mean, especially when you look at some of the past games they've promoted. What even... Unbelievable. Unbelievable. The project isn't stopping, but it's not going anywhere good, and having taken the break that I did, it felt like the right thing to cover as I returned. For anyone who wants one, I have Earth 2 inspired merchandise that's still up for sale. A burning earth, a tile grid, it's all there. Grab some. Financially reward me for talking trash about a company that in my opinion could not possibly be a bigger joke, with a fan base that honestly they really do. Okay, they have to be practicing some sort of financial masochism at this point, because this project is a dumpster fire. But yeah, if you want to support, there are links down below. Odyssey, which is a YouTube platform alternative, and within the next 2 weeks, I will have one exclusive video on Odyssey. I'm testing a new partnership with them to diversify away from YouTube and just protect myself financially. It's still free, and it will only happen once every 2 weeks. It's bi-weekly, but I thought I would let everyone know once again. There's also Locals, $5 a month for completely ad-free versions of all the content, another gaming YouTuber to check out, merch, social media, etc., but I'll cut it there and stop rambling. As always, thank you all for watching, and have a nice night.